question candy. Let's check the question statement over here, the problem statement. There are n children standing in a line. Each child is assigned a rating value given in the integer array rating. You are given candies to these children subjected to the following requirement. Each child must have at least one candy. Children with a higher rating gets more candies than their neighbors. Return the minimum number of candies you need to have to distribute the candies to the children. So at least one candy will be given to all the children. So all the children might be having one candy for sure. And with that, children with a higher rating gets more candies than their neighbors. So we have to understand the higher rating should be compared with the neighboring childs only. So the left and the right child only will be considered for this condition. So now let's see the example. We have the rating as 1, 0, 2. So we have 3 children with different ratings. You know 1 is higher than 0. So obviously 1 should have higher candies. Similarly 2 should have higher candies because 2 is higher than 0. Its neighbor. And 0 is smaller than both of them. So the candies for 0 will be smaller than 1 and 2. So in the same logic, and we also know that we should have at least one candy for the 0th also. So if somebody have got 0 rating, for that person also there should be one candy. Considering that, if we assign one candy, so first of all we'll check how it can be solved. And just for this example, you can understand the second one was given, this first, second and third were consecutively given in this order, the number of candies, 2 for the first one, 1 for the second one, and 2 for the third one. So we will try to understand how this is happening. Let's get into our notepad. As we have understood the question, in this we are getting an input as 102 as the number of, as the rating of each child, and this is the output. This is the number of candies that we have to distribute among those children. So this is the maximum number of this is the minimum number of candies that I have to distribute among the children. So first we have to understand there are 2 conditions. The first condition is all children must have one candy each, and the second condition is the ith value should have, if ith value is bigger than I plus 1, then I will have more candies. Similarly, I am breaking down the second condition in 2 parts. So if ith value is greater than I minus 1, then also I will have more candies. So this is our condition that we need to understand, and with these 2 conditions only we'll be able to solve the problem. So in the question it is mentioned that it should be higher than the neighbor. So neighbor is the I plus 1 and I minus 1 for I. But if it is I, it will be I minus 1 as the neighbor and I plus 1 as the neighbor. But we need to understand that we will be iterating from one direction at once. So the logic behind this whole solution will be something like, we will do a first iteration from the left side and we will be checking I minus 1 with that, with ith value, and then when we are doing a iteration from the right side, we will check this condition. So first of all, to fulfill the first condition, we will be creating an array of equal length for rating with one candy given to all the children. So we have 3 children with 3 different ratings. Now one candy will be given to all the children for sure, because then only we'll be able to fulfill the first condition. Now as the first condition is fulfilled, we need to understand we have to do a left iteration. We will create a for loop over here for left iteration, and obviously we have to start, because we are doing a comparison from I minus 1. So our initial value of I will start from I equals to 1 to I equals to ratings dot length minus 1. So it will be the condition will be something like this. And what you have to understand that when we are running this condition, we are iterating from the first index to the last index from left side of the array. So with this iteration, with the left iteration, if I is greater than I plus 1, if I is greater than I minus 1, then one candy will be given more compared to I minus 1 candies. So if suppose somebody have 2 candies in the array and somebody have both the folks have 2 candies suppose, and our ratings is something like 3 and 4 is higher, and that's why we have to increment the 2 candies to 3 candies. So basically we'll be just incrementing the value of candies in I minus 1 position plus 1. So that's how we are going to increment the values. So if when I'll write the code, you will understand it more in a better way. But just for understanding right now, you have to understand when I'm iterating through this array, my I minus 1 value should be lesser than I. If it is less, then it is fine. Otherwise, if it is not less, then I have to increment the number of candies. So initially everybody got 1 candy. Let's do the iteration. First, when it is I equals to 1, that means we are in 0. So we will do the comparison. If 0 is greater than I minus 1, 0 is not greater than I minus 1. So we will not do anything. Similarly, next thing that we are going to do is compare 2. So when we are in the second iteration, so we got our 1 first, 1 will be similar. Now we have got 1 candy over here also, it will be similar. And then for 2, what we are going to do, it will be something like, we are again checking this condition. If 2 is greater than I minus 1, yeah, 2 is greater than 0. So that's why, because over here 2 is greater than 0, 2 is greater than I minus 1 value. Because of that, the number of candies whatever 0 have plus 1 candy will be added to the number of candies that 2 had. So considering that, we will have 2 candies over here. So now we got our left iteration based candies, 1 plus 1 plus 2. So what we have to do, we have to now do a similar iteration from the right side to match this condition. So we have fulfilled this condition. Now we will be fulfilling this condition. I plus 1 value should be lesser than ith value. So for that, we will be starting from the second last index. It will have a similar array which will start from rating dot length minus 2 to I equals to 0. So it will be a loop which will be running from the last index to the first index of the array, ratings array, and this right iteration will give me the result based on the values over here. So the right iteration will also happen in 1 1 1. We need to understand that the right iteration is also happening in 1 1 1 array, which became this. Now we are doing a right iteration on that candies array. When we are doing that, we first will be checking 0 is, so the first comparison will be if 0 is greater than 2, it is false. Fine, we'll go to the next comparison. If 1 is greater than, so basically the similar will be printed over here. For 2, it will, for the last value it is going to be 2 only, but for because of this comparison we got 1 over here because the condition was not matched. Now we got to see for the next comparison 1 is greater than 0 or not. So we got to know, okay, 1 is greater than 0, but the value is the number of candies is not greater than 0. So both have equal number of candies, but one should have more candies because one have got more rating than 0. Considering that, we have just incremented the value plus 1 from whatever value the ith index had, whatever value like 0 had, whatever number of candies 0 had, the same number of candies are given to 1 also plus 1. So basically we have just added one more candy to the number of candies 0 had, and now we have given one more candy to 1. So this becomes our final result, and whatever the result is, we just will need to add it up and we will be getting our 5 as the output. That's how it will be done, and the logic is not quite hard, and we need to understand that the time complexity over here will be on, because we are running 2 for loops. 2n becomes n, and the space complexity over here will also be on, because we are creating a new array that will be the candies array. So the space complexity will be on because of that. So this is our time and space complexity. Now let's write the code. So we have this function candy, and the rating is being passed as a array, as a parameter to this function. So the ratings array have the input of all the ratings of all the children. So as we have discussed, first we will be creating the candies array. Candies array will be of equal length whatever ratings have. And now we know each children will be getting one candy for sure. So we'll fill all the values in the array with 1. So now with this we have one candy for each children. Now, as we have already discussed, first thing that we need to do is we need to iterate from the left side of the array to for checking the first condition. So I'll also write the condition over here. So now we are checking if I is greater than I plus 1, I minus 1, then I will have more candies. And the next condition that we need to check will be the opposite of this. So let's first write this code. We are doing the left iteration where I equals to 0 and I less than equals to. So we will be starting from 1 in this, because we don't want I minus 1 value to be minus 1, so that's why we are starting with 1. So it will be rating dot length and I plus plus. So this will do the job, and if this will be ratings, if ratings I is greater than ratings I minus 1, we will do the calculation over here. So this will increment the value of candies for us. Candies I will be equals to candies I minus 1 plus 1. So whatever candy I minus 1's hold, whatever the rating of candy I minus 1 hold, as it is smaller than rating I, candies in I minus 1 will be smaller than candies in I. So we will just increment whatever candies I minus 1 had with plus 1, and we will store it to candies I. Now we'll create a sum, because we ultimately have to calculate the sum. I'll give the value of sum a bit later to explain it, where I equals to. Now we are doing the right iteration, as we have already discussed on this on the approach. Now rating dot length minus 2, and I should be greater than equals to 0, and I minus 1 minus. So we are doing the opposite iteration from whatever we previously did, and now as we are giving minus 2 because we don't want to take the last index, we want to take the second last index. Similarly, whatever we did over here, because over here we are going to check if I is greater than I plus 1, I will have more candies. Once you drink that, if rating I is greater than rating I plus 1, we need to understand that candidate's I value can be maximum in comparison to candidate I plus 1 value. So in that case, so if we just write this, candidate I equals to candidate I plus 1, this might be true, but there are conditions in which it will be failing in a scenario where candidate I is already higher. So to avoid that, we will take math.max, because we want the maximum value for the candies that is required to fulfill the condition of both left and right. And over here candidate is I will be going. Yeah, so this is how we will take the candidates I. Now we have to do the sum. As I was telling, the var sum equals to, initially there has to be some value, because we are doing the calculation from the second last index. So sum over here will be simply sum equals to candidates I, sum plus equals to candidate I, but this will only store from the second last index to the 0th index, but for the last index we have to store the values of candies directly to the sum, and this will be the initial value of sum. Instead of 2, it will be 1. So we are storing whatever candies are there in the last index, and next whatever candies are being added, it is added in the for loop. We will simply return sum, and let's run the code now. Perfect, it is accepted. Now let's submit the code. Cool, this is done, and let's see if we have similar questions. So we don't have any similar questions over here, but obviously you can go and check more questions. There are certain questions pointed over here also, and solve such more questions. And yeah, thank you.